That's funny.
Where I've got the YouTube video up and it hasn't started yet.
That's funny. Let's see if that actually happened.
It did, and now we're live. So, welcome to Troy Nunes' an Absolute live stream, and you missed a great conversation about us ripping on Andy about his wonderful Arsenal Football Club, and you're gonna miss the fancy intro music because I'm an idiot and didn't hit go. So here we are. Welcome to the party, and welcome to this week with Steve Haller, Andy Pregler, and Christian DeGuzman.
So, all you need to know is that we're done ripping on my soccer team, and we can now go right into the Syracuse football conversation.
Yeah, from
Andy's at some point again.
Yeah, from Andy's standpoint, this is great because none of what we just went through in the past 3-4 minutes went public, so he's good.
I'm feeling very good, and this is wonderful because I get to now pass the baton off to our wonderful Christian DeGuzman, who was actually able to cover an in-person Syracuse practice. And Christian, I'm going to let you handle the details, but basically the high level that I got was that we were able to have the media come and see some version of practice. There were the ESPN specials that were going on, the ACC network specials that were going on that basically forced Dino to kind of open up the program a little bit more than usual, answer some more questions than he might normally have. And additionally, there was a scrimmage that we got little glimpses of on social media, but that might have also contributed to why there was more shown in the practice time that you were allowed to go to. So that's the high level stuff. I'm going to throw it to you. Like, what was the most interesting / consequential stuff that you were able to infer from other reporting that was done?
So the big thing is that in practice, normally we only get about 10 minutes of practice. We actually got 30 minutes this past week, which was very, very welcome. And we got to see 11 versus 11 drives. One drives from the one drive from the twos, and one drive from the threes. And just by peeking through, you could sort of kind of see how the depth chart is going to shape up. Now, that is barring a couple of people who weren't participating in that 11 versus 11. You had McKinley Williams out sick, Dakota Davis in a boot, and Luke Benson in street clothes. And also Abdul Adams was limited in practice that day also, so he wasn't running the high-intensity 11-11 scrimmages, just participating in some of the other drills. But we got to kind of see how the depth chart is starting to shape out. And Tommy ran with the ones, that's well known. Let's start with the offense there. So Tommy ran with the ones, Sean Tucker's the number one running back. That's kind of the knowns. Taj Harris, Anthony Quealy, your ones and twos. The number 3 receiver appears to be Damian Alford. He seems to be in the running to be that number 3, which I think we all kind of expected. So that's not a big surprise. Also, not too huge a surprise is that we saw Darius Tisdale in the offensive line in place of Dakota Davis. Again, that's probably expected as well because he's the most experienced guy. Although he had his plenty of down moments last year, still is the guy that probably is the best fit for that line. He went into right guard. Chris Bleich went into left guard, and Steve can correct me on this, but I think Bleich might go to right guard and Davis goes to left guard when eventually Davis is healthy. What do you think?
I think it'll end up. I think Bleich will stay at left, and
okay.
Basically, Bleich played left at Florida, so
okay.
And Davis has played both sides for us, so it's kind of a mishmash of where you would prefer him. I'd assume, especially if Davis is expected to be back, which it doesn't seem like from anything we've heard from Dino that's major, but who knows the way he talks to the media about injuries. So I think he actually said it's nothing to worry about, but I believe he also said that about Sam Heckel 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So hopefully, especially if he's still in a boot a week into camp, that might it gives me a little bit of the uneasiness, but not enough to hit the panic button. Also, you did mention Luke Benson. Before anybody that's listening hits the panic button, he was in action today, correct?
No, I think I actually missed I misread the numbers, but I don't think he was in the scrimmage.
Okay.
I actually misread the numbers, so I have to correct that.
All right, hit that panic button.
That would have been nice, but I hopefully we won't have to hit the panic button yet.
Yeah.
And that goes the same with Dakota Davis as well. I think theoretically those guys, it doesn't seem like they're major injuries. I mean, I didn't see anything. I didn't see like a brace or anything that Benson had, or like any type of boot or anything. He was just wearing street clothes. Nothing that showed like an obvious injury. So hopefully it's minor.
Nice.
Maybe just resting up. And the other thing, so obviously with Benson out, who's the tight end that replaces him? It was Max Mang, who was the main guy replacing him, which kind of seems to indicate like that the Mang is going to be your defensive. When I say defensive guy, by being the primary blocker, and then if you put in Stephen Mahar, he's going to be your primary pass catcher in terms of which backup tight end do you want to use. And then you have Rhino, obviously.
I was gonna say, I think we'll definitely get into the first team defense and we'll get into the second stringers, but I do kind of want to take a moment to pause on something that I think we might see more of. So something that Dino said, he was asked specifically about other teams across the ACC and across the country lapping, for lack of a better pun, Syracuse when it comes to tempo. And one of the things that Dino said was that, you'll be kind of be surprised by what Syracuse rolls out, but they're still going to stay with this up-tempo scheme. And one of the things that came to my mind was going back and thinking about his Baylor days. I'm gonna dive into this a little bit more for the website, but just something I want to kind of bounce off of you guys is the idea of Rhino as some kind of tight end fullback hybrid option. He's obviously not necessarily going to be, I know we joked about it, but like the wheel route swing pass kind of an option. But he does allow you to get a little bit more dynamic with the way that you line up a formation and cause mismatches with the linebackers. Because, Christian, as you just alluded to, the tight ends right now without Benson very much telegraph what Syracuse is going to do. And when you can't really be giving up that much of an advantage, even at a high-tempo game, Rhino allows you to do some weird things formation-wise, but also theoretically could be used as a different decoy to move linebackers in and out of certain slots where you might want to run one of your primary option running backs.
And we know how hard it is for linebackers to drop into coverage, especially here at the college level. You don't usually see too many collegiate linebackers excel in any type of coverage situation. So that's where the versatility of those guys up the middle, you definitely could play in the hand.
Point of clarification, after watching Luke Benson block last year, you're also telegraphing what you're doing with him on the ball.
That's a good point. We'll get to some blocking later, because there was some other blocking stuff that we saw at the end of practice that I know Steve will have a lot to talk about. But
yeah, let's talk about. I think the first team offense was definitely, like as you said, Christian. It was kind of basic. In terms of we knew what was going to happen. Great news for Alford. I think everyone is rooting for him on the NunesMagician staff. Let's talk about the twos, because I think that's where things started to get a lot more
I think the twos are interesting. Before we do that, I do want to talk about the first team defense. There's some very interesting things on the first team defense. So we didn't see McKinley Williams. He was confirmed to be out sick, but like not to a COVID issue. So he should be fine to return in the coming weeks. So Curtis Harper slid into his spot. That's expected. We know Curtis Harper has been the backup DT basically his entire time here at Syracuse. That's no surprise. Linebackers, I did see Marlo Wax get a fair share of time with the ones. And he showed some great promise last year. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. And then we get to the safeties. Obviously, kind of interesting to see what we do with the safeties. I did see Jihad Carter out there, so most likely he's sticking in there. I didn't get a good look at who one of the safety was, if it was going to be Hannah or Eric Coley. I did see Jason Simmons out there, the transfer from New Mexico State, running with the ones. And he seemed to be in the middle of the field. So it looks like he is going to be one of the starting safeties, which is pretty interesting to see that he's already jumped up the depth chart. The big thing, of course, is who takes the second corner spot opposite of Garrett Williams. And right now, it appears to be the front runner is Deuce Chestnut, the 4-star recruit out of New Jersey, the highest recruit, depending on which recruiting site you look at, the highest recruit in the Syracuse class. And that's interesting because, again, it's a true freshman who needs to fill the roles of a number 2 cornerback who rose very quickly to the number 1 cornerback and solidifying that spot this year. And we actually, if you look at the scrimmage footage, Deuce actually has an interception in that scrimmage footage. So it's interesting to see that he's already jumped up the depth chart so much and really solidifying his high status as a four-star recruit.
Yeah, I think Deuce is a fantastic player, really high ceiling, and again, somebody who also was an early enrollee. So we see that in a non-COVID year, these early enrollees who have an opportunity to participate in spring ball can really make their mark on the team and get to a point of being a high-impact freshman, which is what Syracuse kind of needs in some specific areas of the team.
Now, I guess one other thing of note, Neil Nunn is still limited. Where do you think he's going to slot back in once he gets healthy? Because him and Linton are both coming off the offseason lower body injuries there.
Yeah, I think he'll go back to the number 3 quote unquote cornerback. Right. I don't think he slots into the safeties, but I definitely think it's tough because I think the coaches especially during spring ball, like talk about coach speak all you want, but Baber seemed really, really high on Deuce in coach speak.
And he came in January,
you could only
too, so it's a whole different ball game with him. It's not the true freshman stepping in type thing, which is nice.
Yeah, so it's difficult to see, but I could still see even if Neil Nunn comes back and is fully fit. I still think that Deuce has a good shot at being at least at being a starter.
Right.
If not, like I think he'll still get decent minutes. And he set himself up to get decent minutes.
And I think on that note, Steve, I think you bring up a really good point. Is that we talked a lot last year in the 3-3-5 about the flexibility of the different defensive backs. But one of the things that we saw very early on in the year is that rover position becomes incredibly important into the 3-3-5. When Cisco went down, that fundamentally changed the way that Syracuse had to protect the run, and that impacted how their pass coverage worked and how aggressive they could be in certain scenarios. Yep. And I think with this much depth, there's going to be a potential to see some players maybe moved around. I don't necessarily think Nunn is a candidate to move into that slot. He doesn't typically have the size, at least to our knowledge, he does not have the size that you kind of want in that rover edge run stopping position. That being said, I do wonder, with no clear kind of heir apparent to that position, even last year as we saw, there was a lot of experimentation on who can actually do that role well. I wonder if there's an opportunity for maybe some cycling in where we start to see Tony White really become the mad defensive hatter and start creating some different mixes of cornerbacks and safeties that allow, okay, maybe this guy's not a run-stuffing rover, but he's a misdirection player because we're going to have these other two players coming in and doing different things. Again, pure speculation, but it's just like nobody really fits into that role very clearly right now.
The thing I will say before Steve says something about that is that Eric Coley last year said that he had practiced at the Rover. So I have to take a look. I don't remember seeing him with the ones. He probably was, but I'm not sure if he was limited or not. But if Coley is still healthy, I expect him to be the starting Rover day one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to go for, was the fact that he was there last year and at least repping there before he went down. And he went down relatively early, but he vamping while I look up his credentials as far as height and weight, because I believe, if I remember right, he actually fits that, a little bit bigger than your average defensive back, i.e., 6'2", 200. So he's kind of that tweener that we're looking for in that slot. He's not pegging the Cisco guns, but he's a beefy man that will run stop when needed.
We saw this weekend in NFL preseason games. Not a lot can stop in the Cisco guns.
Yeah.
That man is huge.
Yes. That's right up there. I'm hitting the Wayback Machine here. You may not remember at all, Christian, but good old DC3, DeLon Carter. Those were some guns too. So
the Maroon teams were obviously known a little bit more for being bring your lunch pail to work kind of team.
yeah, the weight
And they
room
had
freak.
they had some freaks on that
Yeah.
squad. Shamarko will always be the guy that if he was just like 4 inches taller,
Yep.
would have been an absolute beast. And the fact that he made it to the NFL at his size when he was shorter than I am, which I stood next to that guy and I got to look down a little bit. I was like, oh man, this is this is weird.
Yep. But no, the way, like you're talking about that defensive Mad Hatter thing, I know we touched on it in a couple articles last year about that flexibility of what they can do, be it the rover position, be it, like you said, slotting someone in a pass situation to make that an interior corner, have somebody like hard cover in the slot. There's a lot of different ways they can roll it out. There's a lot of different personnel that we have in the depth. We're looking at a lot of guys that were probably running with the twos that Christian will mention that had an impact last year and got good minutes. So it's not like everyone is talking about how, yeah, it's a young secondary. It's a young secondary that got a lot of field time because everybody else got hurt or was gone or, magically disappeared for some reason. So they're young, but they're not green, which is a very positive thing to see coming out.
Yeah, so Christian, walk us through some of the twos. You can start with defense since I guess we're kind of already there.
Well,
but I think
I'm gonna just be honest. I didn't really pay attention too much to the defense on the 2s and 3s.
great. Then let's talk about the
So,
offensive twos because that's way more interesting.
Well,
Because to me, the offense was way more interesting.
Right. And for clarification too, for people listening, usually when they're running these scrimmages, yes, you're hearing 1s, 2s, 3s. Sometimes that lower end of the guys that will be running with the 1s and we're going to see get game experience are running at the top of the 2s in a situation like this. So for something like the defense, it's going to be a lot more fluid too. So it may not be as imperative to hit that defensive side of the ball.
Especially with how much Dino showed and Tony White showed last year that they like to rotate guys in and out of the game. Like you'd expect there to be some fluidity in the defensive structure and the defensive personnel.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd expect to see a lot more guys than we see on offense. Offensively, the 2, no surprise, Garrett Trader is your 2. Like, how funny would it have been if I said it? Oh, it's Jacoby and Morgan at the 2. La 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 la. Just to see a firestorm. But no, it is Garrett Trader. He threw. The interesting thing to note, because I know everyone's like, oh, how did the quarterbacks look? DeVito only threw 1 pass in the one drive. Schrader threw 4 passes, but I didn't get a good sense of distance. I doubt any of them went for more than 5 yards in the air. So not too much to decipher there in terms of his arm strength, accuracy. Did complete all 4, but again, relatively easy passes for a quarterback of his standard that you think he should make. So we made a couple to Stephen Mahar. So finally, the tight ends catching balls. Hallelujah. Probably caught the same amount of balls that the tight ends caught all year in that just one drive. He completed a ball to Javonte Williams as well, and I believe he completed a ball to Trevor Pena as well. Those were his receivers. And then the 2 running back was Jarvion Howard. And he actually showed a couple of decent runs. Tucker actually, most of the plays on the 1s were with Sean Tucker, and he got wrapped up pretty well by the defense. Whether that's a sign that might be more of a sign that the defense might actually be better at stopping the run this year, which, please, that'd be a lot helpful, more helpful than anything that Tucker could probably show in that. But
point of clarification, they can't get much worse.
That is very true. If they do get worse, then boy, will we have something to talk about. But yeah, Howard ran with the 2s. Not sure exactly where Andrew Adams sits on the depth chart. He was limited in practice, so again, didn't participate in the hard-hitting drills. So we're not sure where he stands with the 2s. So that was the more interesting part with the 2s. If you want to start with those.
Yeah, I think Jarvion is a really interesting case study because Sean Tucker is definitively the starting running back and is a good running back. Well, again, we keep talking about this blocking footage. We will get to it in a second. We know his limitations in that specific aspect of the game. We also know from like a wider football sense that traditional number one running backs who get every carry are very few and far between and require an elite level of athleticism and durability that even though Sean Tucker has shown that he's got some very high-end running back abilities, he did get hurt last year. We're not 100% sure where that stamina and where that durability is because he's still so young. So I think it's really important that Syracuse at least go into this year with at least 2 or 3 running backs who you could theoretically roll out there in any situation to be comfortable with. Jarvion was not somebody who I thought would fit that mold. It's really nice that apparently he's proven enough to get there. And he's not quite a change of pace back in the same sense of like Sean Tucker is going immediately between the center and the guard every single time, and he's going to try to get you 3 or 4 yards every single time. Jarvion kind of does that. That's probably a stronger part of his game than going outside, to be honest. But that being said, I think it's helpful that Jarvion has proven to be potentially the number 2. Again, we don't know about Adams, but to be fair, the last time that Adams played, I wasn't super impressed at his ability to go inside or his ability to go outside either. So I'm kind of more me personally, I feel far more confident with Howard in any kind of role above the depth chart on Adams.
And I'll be curious on that inside-outside type run game and not being able to see the scripted plays and what they had during the scrimmage. Mike Schmidt at SDSU had a ton of that. It's almost like a guard tackle dive. It's like a B-gap dive versus it's not a true power. It's not a true dive. It's somewhere in between that kind of mid that weird mid-run that he seemed to love and work with. And if he can make that a thing, it puts a very strong matchup on like a mid-power. There we go. Sorry, I was like, there's a term that I've heard called. It really, blocking-wise, it helps open a couple things up against a couple of fronts that we'll see. So I think that should probably be something we look out for. And keeping it from being deep in the trenches also helps Vetterello not being the best run blocker on the squad. It puts more of the onus on the guards. Hopefully, whoever ends up at right guard helps out whatever Aaron Service did last year. Because run blocking, he was sub the Mendoza line very hard.
I mean, the same can be said for his pass blocking. So
fair. I was trying to give a little more credit, but he, yeah. And again, I've seen him look very good on other aspects of both run and pass blocking. It was just a weird year for him last year where nothing seemed to work, and we're never gonna know if he was injured the whole year, playing through something or whatever. But it needs to get better this year.
Bergeron started last year at right tackle.
Yeah,
man.
that.
Yeah, I think the other thing about the twos that is a little bit interesting to me, and again, Steve, you kind of talked about this, is that you might see some guys at the top end of the twos get some work. Pena is a guy who, Christian, I think you kind of mentioned on previous shows. Like, Dino has gone out of his way to kind of mention him in different.
That was
Cooper Lutz is the one.
I did want to touch about that. I didn't see Lutz in the 11v11 scrimmages. Maybe he was out wide for some of them, playing wide receiver, and I just didn't get a good shot or like really see where exactly he was. But he wasn't at running back for those drives, which was interesting.
Yeah, and I think so. It's actually funny that I screwed them up because this is where I was going with this. Is that we've seen both of those guys get reps at running back due to Syracuse having everybody hurt. We also know that Sterling Gilbert has said that he wants Taj to still be an outside, long pass option, at which all of us have made our opinions very well known that we don't think that's the best use of his skill set. Regardless, Anthony Quealy is going to attempt to do some things. Anthony Alford is, again, another more down deep threat.
Is that Damian?
Anthony Alford. Yep, I'm getting all my Syracuse players confused. Obviously, you can tell I have to look at a depth chart a few more times. Bottom line I'm trying to get to is that Syracuse does not have a true slot receiver because the one true slot receiver that they were supposed to be using, they want to use as a deep threat. So the question I continually want to see, and I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit more about the straight or short passes, is just, is there a scenario where you think that, like, they're working out these different guys with Schrader because they don't know what to do with the slot receiver yet, and they're potentially experimenting and they're trying to get some guys into a rhythm? Or is it just a situation where, look, there's a lot of bodies at wide receiver, they're going to try to smash up and see what works, and we'll rotate as the season goes on?
I think it's going to be a mixture of both, honestly. Yeah, because it felt like last year, no matter who was at quarterback, we talked about how DeVito doesn't deviate from his first read all that often, but it feels like all the quarterbacks really didn't deviate from the first outside reads. It really didn't give too much of a look to inside until they had to put Taj in the slot, which is again, that's where the success came. You think the breadcrumbs would be followed, but unfortunately not. So yeah, that's all that needs to be said about that. But I think that's really a mixture of both. That one, the coaches are looking to do something, but two, I think they're also looking for someone to stand out and be that guy who can really take the reins in that wide receiving core. I mean, if he's healthy, why not try Luke Benson in the slot, because that'd be interesting as well.
Now, we do have a Power 5 slot receiver on the roster right now with Devon Cooper coming in. He was a slot receiver for Arizona.
Oh, right.
I completely forgot about that, because we didn't cover this last week. This was this kind of snuck in under the wire, right?
Yeah, I forgot about it. Is he? I don't think he's on the roster right now.
He is
last time
number 25.
He is number 25. Okay, I will look for that next Friday.
Yeah,
that's a really good point, Steve. And now I'm very Dino would 100% hold that card as close to the vest as possible if we're going to go out in the Ohio game. You see number 25 just lined up in the slot on the first play. We're all just going to be it's the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. We're just going to be pointing at it. You heard it here first. In case you see that, everybody, that could be a thing that rolls out.
Yeah.
So, Steve, what you have to do is take the VOD of this, clip it, and then when that inevitably happens, post that on Twitter.
We'll see what we can come up with.
So before we go and move off of this topic, I do want to talk about the threes for one hot second, because Christian, your favorite human in the world was on the threes. I think he might be your new favorite Syracuse football player.
No, he's definitely my new favorite Syracuse football player, because Josh Huff is just so awesome because he's so huge. 6'3", he's 6'3". All right, before I tell you his weight, let's have you two guess. What's his? Steve, don't look it up.
No.
What do you think Josh Huff's weight is?
He's 18, so he might still have a little bit of that high school I'm big baby fat going. I'm gonna say that he's probably a 245 guy.
I'm taking the over on that. 262.
It is 255.
Hey!
I lost the Price is Right.
He is 6'3", 255, which is just that. First of all, he's a running back, which is he's approaching Chris Elmore territory at fullback, with his weight. But it's funny because when he's running against the threes, it's how are these guys gonna stop him? And that's exactly what happened in the scrimmage. Running against the threes, it's he just has such a massive advantage over them.
It's the old Ron Dane concept, hitting the way back machine.
Yeah, exactly. It's now you realize how this guy routinely broke off 80-yard touchdown rushes in high school during his senior year, because it's for high schoolers, it's nearly impossible to tackle him.
Yeah, and I this is the thing that I was always you, Christian. I also had another friend, shout out to Chari, who loved this kid, thought that this and kept looking at statements. So I actually did the I'm not gonna tout that I run out and talk to some high school coaches. I happen to have one friend who is an assistant with a Whippeal school, and I just texted him and was okay, this kid's coming to Syracuse. Everyone's getting really excited. What can you tell me? And he's the kid plays 2 divisions down from me, so I'm never gonna see him. I'll tell you this: he's bigger than anybody that we've got on our roster, and we've got guys going D1. So there's no way that this guy is competing against anybody in his same level on a week to week. Now, for a really fun connection, this is where we then drew the line. There was another Syracuse recruit who came out of Northwest PA with that exact same profile, and that would be Rob Trudeau, who played both ends of the ball. He was an offensive guard and a defensive tackle for Farrell, PA, which is like 5 levels down from top-level Pittsburgh competition. And this kid, I got to see him play against my high school. He just dominated it. And so you wonder, like, is this kid actually going to be any good when he goes to D1 and plays against actual competition? Trudeau ended up being a pretty important part on the offensive line for 3 years. And Christian, like, Huff is it Huff or is it Hughes?
It's Huff. It's Huff. Yeah.
So Huff being on the
three.
Yeah, add it to the
that's
board,
another one you have to write down. Yeah,
add that one to the board too.
Mm-hmm.
Huff being with the threes kind of is lending this credibility to, like, okay, yes, it's 3 divisions down from the top level, but like Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio are still tremendous football hotbeds. And there's like a really good opportunity that somebody who's dominating at that level because of great size might also have just enough technique coming in to be worthwhile. And I'm wondering if are we going to bring back the tank package with Huff at the running back at some point in time? I guarantee it's going to happen versus Albany. Whether it happens versus Ohio or somewhere else remains to be seen.
We need a 2-man backfield with Huff and Elmore.
Huff and Elmore, yes.
How do you stop that? That's 3 yards every time.
Josh Huff at 255 pounds. Chris Elmore at 265 pounds. What are you doing to stop that?
I mean, we joked about this in Slack where Kevin was like after the Babers.
What do you do if you're a linebacker and he goes out and on a route?
We laugh.
Who's the poor linebacker that has to come up against that guy?
I'm now that we're talking about this, I'm really wondering if we take Kevin's idea and we just run like the single wing and we just have these 2 guys in the backfield, force everybody to sell out to stop the run, and then just have Taj over the top. Like, is that how we fix this offense?
None of the linebackers on our roster are over 235 pounds. Yeah. Stephon Thompson and Marlo Wax are both 235 pounds, and they're the heaviest linebackers on our roster.
Run Benson in that wing too.
Yes.
No, actually, the Sorcerer Supreme as the wing. Maximilian.
Yes. I cannot wait to see the weird stuff that happens in that Albany game when we're not really trying to show anything, but we want to get young guys minutes and we just kind of want to keep things basic. I think that might be the most interesting offensive wrinkle we have early in the year.
I mean, theoretically, you can't shoot too much in that Albany game, or else we have to rely on Albany's kicker to miss a chip shot field goal to not lose the game.
All right, box chips.
Christian will never let Syracuse take an FCS opponent for granted ever again.
No, I will not. Absolutely not.
Albany tie. Held is in the chat and is complimenting your Albany Dutchman polo, by the way.
So we have spent almost. I think actually we spent over a half hour talking about the football practice, which is great. I want to make sure that I'm really glad that, Christian, you were actually able to go. We were able to see some things. We have the full recap up on the site, so go read it, go comment if you want to talk about it. One of the things that I did want to really quickly talk about is kind of take a zooming out for the Syracuse lens. We got 2 major preseason rankings coming out. The first is not really all that surprising. It's the ACC Preseason Poll. Syracuse was picked dead last in their division. They got the fewest votes. The Atlantic is always a little bit of a chaotic division, so everybody got a vote for something over there. Syracuse technically predicted to finish last in the ACC. Clemson predicted to finish first. For either of you, I mean, I'm not going to say predict the Atlantic because the Coastal, because the Coastal is always chaos. The Atlantic is a little bit more straightforward. We know that Syracuse is going to have to play some really tough opposition this year. Was there anything in the preseason rankings that surprised you? And is this Clemson season again? And we're all just kind of, going through the motions before Clemson takes the ACC spot in the playoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember exactly what the exact rankings were. I gotta hold this up. Okay, I see it. So,
yeah,
Atlantic Division: Clemson, NC State, Boston College, Florida State, Wake Forest, Louisville, Syracuse. I'm actually surprised to see Louisville a bit lower. I think Louisville has a little bit of hope behind it, especially with Malik Cunningham. Where I think they could be actually fighting mid-tier ACC and not with us at the bottom. So yeah, it's that's pretty much what you expect. Maybe Louisville up a bit higher, above Wake Forest, and maybe above Florida State, but that's pushing it a bit.
When you look at the vote totals, it's all
Yeah.
like NC State 804, BC 630, 510, 470. Like it's Clemson.
That Florida State Louisville bracket is like pretty like close. So like
right,
4 through 6 will be a little tight. Like everyone, you can pretty clearly see a 1 through 3 form with Clemson, NC State, and Boston College. 7 is us.
I'm still not sold on BC, but that may just be,
I'm not that sold on Wake. I'm not that sold on NC State. Also,
no. I've never sold on NC State. They can find a way to screw up.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised to see NC State up that high.
Shout out to John's favorite football game ever.
I mean, that's John's Villanova game. That Syracuse NC State game.
Yeah, that was definitively not good. The other ranking that came out, Steve, you and my favorite guy, Bill C, dropped his SP Plus ranking. Syracuse was in the 100s, 103rd to be exact. Less than ideal. That being said, these ratings pretty much rely on recruiting and past performance to create the preseason ratings. And Syracuse's returning production was all hurt, so they're not going to get any bump in the returning production side. And their recruiting rankings are always pretty low compared to the rest of the ACC, so that penalizes them even though their class is routinely top 60. So that's why they don't get a top 60 rating. So the system is never kind to Syracuse.
Right.
But in general, for the SP Plus ratings, when Syracuse is really good, they tend to get up into like the 30s and 40s. And when they're really bad, they're in like the 110s. Ultimately, to you, record aside, where would you like to see Syracuse kind of end the year for you to say, okay, this has been a successful step forward for the program? Do they need to get like back into that like top 60 mark, like be in like hypothetically bottom of the Power 5? Or do they need to go further up and be in that mid-tier of the ACC? Most of the ACC teams end up somewhere in the 50s.
Yeah. By the end of the year, for it to be a success, you've got to be... How to phrase it?
Yes, I always give you the hard question.
In all honesty, both things you said, like, definitively above 60. Like, they have to be in the P5 conversation. Are we talking success compared to last year? Or are we talking, make sure Dino is safe type territory? Because
you as a Syracuse football season ticket holder, person who knows that wins and losses in this kind of conference might not always mean linear success. Like, what do you want to see in the ratings for you to go like, okay, we have definitively taken a step forward. I feel not just okay, but like I feel really good about where the program's going.
Probably top 50, just from where we're coming from. And I know by the end of the season, it won't take into account a lot of the stuff that's causing us to have this horrible ranking to start. But still, there's a lot of weird things. And like we said, most of the middle of the ACC is just a coin flip away from everybody else. So as long as we're in that conversation, I would call it a success. But I'm also usually more lenient than most.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Christian. Just in general, like I know, these rankings are always kind of difficult at the end of the season to kind of look back and remember where you started from. But like in general, that kind of a big jump should probably translate into 4 to 6 wins. If Syracuse doesn't go bowling, say they go 4-8, 5-7, but their SP Plus rating is up in that Power 5 level instead of this not going to talk about it level, like, would you feel okay about the program going into the season after?
Yeah, and that's what I've been saying is that my belief this year is that Dino can stay Syracuse head coach if he has a 4-win season, and the 8 losses are relatively close losses, like 1 possession, 2 possession games, not the and and the 2 possession games, it's where like, oh, this could be a winnable, but that just an unfortunate thing went our way. Not the 2 possession losses we had last year, where the score, like a team scored 16 points in the first half, and we felt like we couldn't win. Like those, though, we can't have those type of losses this year. Because if you have those type of losses, then that's where you guys see Dino's seed start to bubble. You have to have a feeling that you could have won at least 75% of the games this year. And if that's the case, then you're looking okay with a 4-win season to stick with Dino, in my opinion.
Yeah, if dare I say, what you're talking about to me reminds me a lot of was the first Marone season or second Marone season? What was his? Did he make the bump in the second season? It was whatever. The season that he was like 4-8, the team felt very different than a 4-8 season, and I think that's kind of what you're going for, Christian. Is
exactly.
If it's a 4-8 year again, it's got to feel very different than a 4-8 year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And before we get into the fun basketball recruiting side of the conversation, there was a really interesting topic that Kevin did the NunesMagician equivalent of a Friday news dump and threw out a opinion piece at the end of the day Friday that got everybody going, which is the old consistency versus peaks and valleys debate. So ultimately, as a Syracuse fan, are you fine with a string of consistent seasons, but you never actually win one of the premier bowl games, national title playoff games? Or do you take those playoff games, Orange Bowl games, in exchange for a bottoming out, 0-12, 1-11, basically what we just went through season? And ultimately, a lot of Syracuse fans almost always say what they want is just be consistently good, which I think is funny because immediately after Syracuse had the 10-win season, everybody wanted Syracuse to do the 10-win season every year, when that's like the epitome of the peak of consistency. I honestly, listen, I don't care what happens. Syracuse wins an Orange Bowl, wins the ACC. I'll take a half decade of 1-2 win seasons because Syracuse got to UConn got to a Fiesta Bowl and got their brains blown out, and then we're also bad. If you can guarantee me that Syracuse wins one of those games, whatever.
Yeah.
I will take that trophy and that Orange Bowl win over the Texas. I think what we're seeing is that fans get pretty tired quickly of pinstripe bowls and Texas bowls.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think because I think, yes, the low moments like a 1-10 season suck, but I don't think fans want to settle for mediocrity, which is kind of like I saw in one of the comments there. That's kind of what Pitt has been doing, settling for mediocrity and getting to a pinstripe Texas Bowl. But do you really see that program going anywhere?
Right.
Not really.
Do you want Steve Adazio BC? Because that's
not really.
Yeah, that's a really good counter. Because we beat Steve Adazio's BCs in a lot of seasons, which I know people don't like to talk about in BC, but that was always a close game for even really bad Syracuse programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
except for the last one.
I think a lot because a lot of fans love the boasting of we won 10 games, we won a Camping World Bowl, and people still hold on to that,
right?
Especially now.
The other thing too, and I think a lot of why you find it in the Syracuse fan base is because of Jim Boeheim and Syracuse basketball.
Yeah.
And their consistency, people still hang their hat on the consistency there. And in all honesty, in a similar vein to exactly what you're saying with football, I would take the peaks of a couple more rings over not having a sub 500 season. I could care less about a sub 500 season if it meant we had a couple more natties to hang on the wall.
Yeah, I don't think Syracuse fans are necessarily comfortable trying to figure out if Lunardi has Syracuse in the tournament every single year.
I think they are, which is the problem.
Yeah, well, those are masochists. We know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of masochism,
Before we delve too much into basketball, I know we wanted to touch on something on football a bit more with the thing that also happened in practice because we need to get Steve's opinion on this. It's the rush block drill.
Yeah, so Christian, you got a front row seat and put it up on. You got some videos of what I again never played football, so I don't exactly know what this specific drill is, but it's basically block somebody. This is taking a very specific aspect of the game and saying, okay, see how you do, and the results were not promising.
I'll let Steve take the floor on this. Just to set it up, it was the Syracuse linebackers versus the Syracuse running backs and tight ends. And the simple goal for the running backs and tight ends, stop the linebackers from getting to the quarterback inflatable dummy. Steve, it didn't go well for some of them.
No, it went very badly for some of them. For people that don't understand the drill or can't picture it in their head, linebackers are teed up on an outside rush, just like you would be, either 3-point stance or a 2-point coming. The running backs, first whistle, run up to where they would effectively be in their wherever they are in their pass pro with the line, whatever gap they're filling, and then the second whistle, linebacker comes whole hog, full blitz like they would, and running back has to try and use various techniques, including footwork and not sucking with your hands, to stop them from getting to the tackling or to the dummy that's supposed to be the QB. First whistle, as soon as I saw it, I literally hit play and then had to type, well, Sean Tucker still sucks at pass blocking. And I can't remember who beat him, but it was just like, gave up his post
I believe it was Mikel Jones on the first one.
Yeah, that would do it too.
It was Mikel Jones.
So Mikel Jones is also very good at rushing the quarterback. However, basics, just giving up that post foot so quick. He got swam in his second attempt from the other side. It was like that. Like, take the off season, work on that. Take the rest of camp. Just put him, we know the guy can run. Just put him over with the offensive line and teach him how to block. After that, Jarvian Howard, still decent at pass blocking. Okay, that helps with the number twos. Beyond that, my boy that I did the get to know on last Friday, Joe Pinju, Austin Rune, picked him up and moved him onto his ass. And there's no other way to describe it.
No, there was air between his feet and the ground.
Yes, it was not good. And yeah, overall it was actually, if I'm sure Christian's got it up on social somewhere, but it was a really solid, it was a fun drill to watch. Like, a lot of times watching practice is for masochists like myself and Christian. But in this case, it was really fun to just watch them go at it in a drill that was showing you what these guys can and can't do. Elmore looked like an offensive lineman out there, which is to be expected, seeing he was an offensive lineman. Josh Huff is a freaking beast. I'm sure he was going against one of the threes for the linebackers, but
who was he going up against? I want to look at this.
Yeah, he held his own perfectly fine, so...
I think it's one, that Austin Rune thing is really funny.
I think he was going up against Marlowe Wax.
Really?
Jeez!
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see... So Christian was able to get footage of the first run through, so they did the left side of the line, and then they switched over and were doing the right side of the line. So we only saw the one side, except for Tucker. But
I do have footage of the second side. I just didn't post it. But I do have footage of the second side.
But the...
Don't threaten him with a good time.
They... it at least gives a good look for what some of these guys are doing. And yes, it's only a one-off and whatever, but it's just fun to take a look at it and get a good look
it's
at
way
that.
more fun than the traditional Oklahoma drills that you'd see where that's just like, okay, that's not a game situation in any way, shape, or form.
It was also a lot of fun hearing Dino yell to the sideline to Luke Benson, who was watching on, and telling him what the tight ends were doing wrong, because I believe, I'm not sure who pointed it out. If it was you, Steve, or someone else, but the tight ends gave up the inside run on every single block.
Yeah, Kevin's the one that called it out, but they literally, it wasn't good. Wasn't good.
Yeah, and Dino was yelling over to the sideline, Luke, do you see that?
Get healthy.
Yeah.
Yep. Fun Fun.
I appreciate that we're seeing one. Dino definitely got himself in better shape this offseason. We will save an article for that whenever someone is brave enough to ask him about that. Like we'll do the full article, the full breakdown. He's gotten himself in much better shape. He also seems to be in just better spirits in general.
Well, his entire team isn't injured, so that helps.
Yes, his team is not injured. Yeah.
And I think that those kinds of interactions are the stuff that we saw a lot in the La Familia series that they did, where like his relationship with the players is actually pretty great. And I want more. This is why I want more practice footage. We'll never get it, but like these are the kinds of insights and conversations that we can have around the football program that are so much fun when we get access. Because to be fair, not a lot of other coaches are watching this stuff because they know just as well that they're going through a lot of stuff that isn't actually real. And it's mostly for us fans who just care way too much about football. Like, let's just be straight up there.
It's for the masochists.
Exactly. For those who care way too much about basketball and are going, why haven't you talked about basketball recruiting? This is where we're going to talk about basketball recruiting. Kadir Copeland is the newest member of the hypothetical Syracuse basketball team in a few years. He announced his commitment to Syracuse, as we've seen many times with Syracuse recruiting, and the whole reason that we've got Kadir Copeland committed to Syracuse, we actually have to wait for that letter to get signed before we can say that he's officially a Syracuse Orange.
Especially in this class.
But he is a top 100 point guard. He's I believe he was, depending on your recruiting site, he's somewhere between 22nd and 25 overall in the point guard recruiting. Like a lot of other guards that Syracuse has recruited, he's really long and lanky, and he's a converted two guard. So,
take away every Syracuse guard.
Yeah, so on the high end, you can look at a Michael Carter-Williams as a great example of this working out. On the other end of the spectrum, he profiles a heck of a lot like not Bryson Goodine. Bryson Goodine and Frank Howard.
Howard did okay. So
what?
Frank Howard did okay, like towards the latter part of his career.
Yeah, and I think,
but very, very different players from the point guard we saw leading the Orange this summer.
Yes, exactly. So I think there's not a ton to talk about in terms of like what this kid will actually bring because he's still got a full season to go. Obviously, there's a potential, and I think this is the more important part. There's a potential that when he comes onto campus, he will have time to sit because hypothetically speaking, Joe Girard would be into his senior year at that point. So you would imagine that Copeland would sit behind Girard for a year before he would get any playing time, which is probably good because we've seen guards that sit for a year tend to actually be pretty good their sophomore years. More to the point, Christian, Syracuse has a really solid recruiting class of a bunch of top 100 guys, but not top 50 guys. A lot of those really high-end instant impact players did not choose to go to Syracuse. I think there's pros and cons to this system. The pros are that you might get a little bit more continuity. The cons are that these reinforcements are not going to be reinforcements right away. And just in general, like, what are you feeling about Syracuse recruiting health-wise as we go into we think Boeheim's going to be at the helm for these things. He's saying he's going to be at the helm for these things, but we don't actually know if he's going to be at the helm for these things.
Yeah, you really need that like top 50 guy to like who you're going to come in and make an impact, even if he's a one and done. Because you need that guy who's going to come in and make an impact, especially with the turnover that's going to probably come this year. Especially with Buddy's probably not going to take an extra year due to COVID because of his COVID extra year because he'll probably be getting an NBA draft flux. Like Barama's not sticking around. Benny Williams is probably one and done. You need someone from the guys I didn't name to really make an impact and show that they can take the reins of the team when those guys leave. Because when those guys leave, like, who is your impact player? Like you said, like, who is that guy who's going to step up? Is it Girard? Like, he's hot and cold on most days. So, like, it's tough to see who's going to be that guy who can step up. Because we've seen it in other teams. Like, we knew who the next guy up was going to be. Like when Malachi left, it was still Tyler Lydon, but you brought in Andrew White and John Gillen. And when those guys left, it was Tyus Battle who stepped up. And then when Tyus left, and when O'Shea left, it was Elijah and Quincy who stepped up. But you knew those guys were going to be the guys that come in. You really don't know for the next group of Syracuse people. So this season is really important to figure out, okay, who could be that go-to guy when the big seniors inevitably leave after this year.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
I just pulled up verbal commits. Let's play the game.
Oh, God.
Imagine what this team could be like in the world that doesn't exist in reality because people need to go get paid. And I blame absolutely zero of them. I think that's been long established that I'm of the ilk of go make your goddamn money.
Yeah.
So a couple walk-ons, but Elijah Hughes at the 2
would
be the from the senior class here. The small forwards would be O'Shea Brissett, as far as who's eligible. O'Shea Brissett, currently Jimmy Boeheim, and then Marek Dolishai, who was recruited as a 3, but is taller and would not be playing there. Matthew Moyer, Torian Thompson, and Brahma. The juniors, Howard Washington at the point, and then Buddy and Griffin and Swider. Solid. And then Jalen Carey, Samir Torrance, Joseph Girard as point guards in the sophomore class. Bryson Goodine, the aforementioned. And then Gary and Braswell and Jesse Edwards. So, yeah. There's some
really different team.
Stuff
a really different team.
And then Kadari as well, because he's technically still a freshman. And Woody Newton, too. Jeez, there's been a lot of roster turnover here.
I think that's the biggest point here is that I'm glad people are excited about this.
You missed from that missed from that list, Steve? Big Bobby Braswell.
Oh no, I caught him. He right next to Gary.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. But imagine him on this team.
I think that this is the point is that the roster turnover has made it so that we can have a really solid recruiting class and still not be feeling super hot about the long-term future of this program right now.
Well, this would be really good. This would be a good recruiting class if we knew who was going to step up next year.
Well, and also
by next year, I don't mean this coming season. The following.
Right. This would have been, I don't know. Compare this to when we were in our heyday, the last resurgence there of the end of the aughts into the early teens.
Yeah.
And what we were bringing in then versus now, and this team wouldn't scrape it would probably be the worst team we brought in that stretch.
Yeah.
It's a solid team and it's a solid filler team, but and it's still technically not done, but there's got to be an anchor somewhere, or there's a lot of guys that could be considered projects. There's a lot of guys that fill roles that we need, but we need more than role fillers at this point.
Yeah, the only guy in this recruiting class I don't think who might not be a project is Kamari Lands. Yeah. Other than that, Thomas and Copeland look like project guards.
And the note I want to kind of end this on is that the reason that this continues to be a cyclical nature for Syracuse is because they continue to get classes like this. So you need Christian, the one non-project player from that class, to step up and be the guy by default. They end up being the guy by default, go on a bullshit Sweet 16 run, and then decide to go pro, thus resetting the entire point of getting an entire class of projects and guys that you project to stay long, because your inability to have a high-impact guy means that class will not actually do so. So,
friends, is Syracuse encapsulated in the past 6 years.
It is specifically, it's normally the guards. Now we're seeing it move off of the guards and move into every other position. But yeah, this is not a new thing for Syracuse. This is a box that they have built themselves and are now trying to figure out how to get out of it. So good luck.
Yep.
I hope so. The last thing we do want to touch on here, even though we're going to go a little bit over the hour, is that Syracuse this week announced that they're going to be retiring jerseys this fall, this academic sports year. And none of them are men's basketball players or men's football players. In fact, we will, for the first time, have former female athletes with retired numbers in the Dome. We are looking at Gary Gait for men's lacrosse, so that'll be a great way to start off his season. Felicia Leggett-Jack, women's basketball. Anna Gooddale for women's rowing, and Katie Rowan-Thompson from women's lacrosse will all have their ceremonies at some point in time. The dates were not released. I'm assuming that we're going to have to wait for all those schedules to kind of come out. The rowing one is the most interesting one to me because you can kind of throw that wherever you want. But it's going, though. Oh, actually, I lied because Kevin's a really good reporter. Legit Jack will have her number honored during Coming Back Together week, September 11th. So we'll probably see that at the Rutgers game.
Wait, they called it Coming Back Together week?
That is the Black and Latino homecoming that happens biannually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In that case,
so
that's
I think,
awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought like the orange. What is it? What do they brand the homecoming thing?
Orange. Yeah, well, homecoming is now Orange Central because it is both a homecoming and reunion? Question mark.
I don't know. I'll stay on the other side of the hill. Over to you.
Yeah. Cue Taylor Twellman gif right here.
What are we doing? But congratulations to all those athletes, and it is nice that we'll see one hopefully at a football game with Legit Jack. I think that then Kevin had the article. I think you guys should all go read it. But there's also he points out some other athletes that we could start seeing adding in there because I do think that this means that Syracuse will be more open to retiring other numbers. Steve, this means at some point in time I'm going to ask you for soccer numbers that need to be retired, but I won't put you on the spot this exact minute for that. Because the obvious one is Alex Bono, just because he's the local kid. But I'm sure you probably wait until his professional career is over to do that one. So that way he can just come back after his retirement.
Yeah, you got to go with deeper cuts off the bat, like a Patrice Bernier or Joe Papaleo.
Jordan Murillo or Skylar Thomas, maybe.
Might be a little too soon.
A little too soon, okay. Yeah, but
still on the...
Bernier is probably the number one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
As far as long-term professional impact, yeah. And also,
I always forget that he's
Syracuse, the first, they're the only international to score for his national team.
I really hope that they do something with Miles, because MLS offseason is that November-December run. I think it would be really cool to bring him back for a basketball game and just we're not going to retire your number, but dude, thanks for being here. Sit courtside next to Weissman for a game or something.
There you go.
They'll do that with Tejan when he inevitably signs for a European club for $7 million.
Dude, those two have had quite the rise here. Yeah. Speaking of which, the first preseason game on Saturday got canceled for COVID protocols from Canisius.
I was gonna go to that also, just to take a peek at it.
So Tuesday, Siena will be in town.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming by the fact that the Siena game is still on that it was Canisius' COVID protocols that canceled it. So
yeah,
would make that assumption as well.
Andy, did you see the Tejan goal from yesterday?
Oh, the Q.
I did.
Pain.
Yeah.
Tejan at one. Yeah. Sorry, Alex Bono. Glad I brought. This is why Bono was on my mind here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was some Q's on Q's crime. But also, God damn it, Tejan's really, really good. He's peaking at exactly the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the same sort of albeit Alphonso Davies came in with more hype, but this is the same sort of rise. He's producing at the same level at around the same time that Davies was in his career.
Oh yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see where he goes in the offseason. Also, shout out to what we just saw from today. Zaire Franklin, wearing number 44, is still bringing the pain.
Absolutely crushed it, dude. Holy crap.
Yep. So more power to him. Rocking the 44 for the Colts. So
we'll have to do. It'll probably be in a few weeks at the end of the NFL preseason when the roster crunch happens. We'll have to see where all the Cuse guys landed because Tristan Jackson also had a touchdown reception in preseason. Ran a really beautiful route. Was able to shake his man, get open for a nice sideline end zone score. So I really want to. He was basically on the Rams roster all year last year and did not get into any game action. He actually did not dress for a single game, I think. But the Rams kept him around, and he was not practice squad. So I have faith that they like what they see out there, and they've actually now got a semi-decent quarterback. So we'll see what happens.
I did this last year. I'm gonna find a time to do it again this year, where I went through all the Syracuse alumni player ratings on Madden, and now that Madden's out, or should be coming out very soon, I'm going to do that again and see, like, okay, let's see where all your favorite Cuse players stack up in Madden this year.
I don't think it's far. I don't think it's like a big gamble to say that Chandler Jones is going to have the highest rating.
No,
yeah. Although Cisco should probably be a lot closer than I think anybody is willing to give him right now.
I just pulled up Cisco's rating. What do you think it is?
It's a third-round pick. Madden really does not like those late-round guys. I think that they probably give him like a 67 or a 68.
I was going to say 68, so.
Yeah.
Ifatu actually got a 67. Cisco got a 70.
Ooh.
Wow!
Yeah.
Big time.
I mean, two more points, but like still okay. That's nice. That he cracked the 70 mark.
Yeah, he cracked the 70. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that goes up over the year and he gets to be like a 75, 80.
He needs a strength rating of 65. That is criminal.
No, they don't know.
No.
It's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
I think that's the right note.
Yeah, I think that is where we're going to have to end it. So, once again, we did a mostly football conversation. That's the way it's going to be for the next few weeks. So, all you football fans, buckle up. This is the time of our lives. Hopefully, we'll have more practice footage to break down next week. We get some more fun, juicy tidbits around the program. And I don't know if it's going to be next week or the week after, but we're going to do the big football thing where we go down week by week and break down the schedule. That'll probably be in line with whenever we decide to do the Syracuse preview series. But just a reminder, we're only a few weeks out from the football season starting, everyone. It's coming close. So if you are watching live, thank you. Hi, Mike, in the chat. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you press subscribe on our YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified every time we go live. Smash that like button so that way the Google algorithm continues to push us out to all those people out there who don't know the glory and wonder that is this wonderful live stream. And if you are watching this on Monday or some other time this week, thanks for coming to NunesMagician.com. Make sure you stop back every day this week for football content. We'll probably have some other basketball news. Something always happens. And thanks for supporting our team. And we can't wait to spend all football season with all of you. It'll be better than last year. I can guarantee that. How much better? Go Orange.
Go Orange.
Maybe go Orange?